So, hi everybody, it's Marie Jenkins from Advance Your Wellbeing, and welcome to today's Business Startup Week. And today we've got Dave Bird. Hiya, Dave.
Oh, hi. I'm so pleased to be on here, Marie. This is great.
Awesome, I'm so glad you could join me. So, tell us who you are and what is it that you do?
Yeah, okay. I'm Dr. Dave Bird. I'm founder of Small Biz Digital Media. So, what does that mean? Well, I basically create videos, podcasts, and audiobooks. And not surprisingly, given the title, they're for small businesses, although I am kind of niching down a bit into professional services a little, like accountants and HR professionals, solicitors, that kind of thing. And just a quick aside, because I know we'll come on to it a bit later. For my sins, I'm also a marathon running coach, which is pretty important when you need a break from all that video editing in a dark room.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you say that you do videos, but I've seen your work and it's just awesome. You do it in a really clever and different way. So hopefully we'll touch on that in a bit more detail as
You're
well.
too kind, but I will try and elaborate and share any pro tips. Yeah.
Okay. So you now run your own business. You said Dr. David Bird. So can you run me through your career path? What's
Yeah,
led you to
sure.
doing what you do?
Yeah. In the kind of need for a quick hook and title to this, I've kind of you can preface this from fish to films. So basically, I started out. Well, I did it. If we go right back, I did a degree in environmental sciences, and I was, very confident and a little bit cocky with that qualification, thinking this is going to be a breeze. Let's go and get a job, get a good job, in that field. And, I was very naive because, we're in the middle of the 80s, recession, miners' strikes, all that kind of
Yeah.
good stuff. And I couldn't, you were getting jobs in East Anglia, far from my home in the West Country, for about 6 grand a year or something, and about 800 applicants. So I thought, what do I do? What do I do? So I saw this ad in the Guardian, and it was to do something to do with fish. And you could become a doctor from doing it. And so I did this. It was a PhD in fish capture techniques. And that sounds very mean, but it was basically for conservation purposes. And, I did that, and it included a very, very interesting scholarship in China that we can follow up with afterwards if you like. But the bottom line is that got me a job as a fish scientist with what is now the Environment Agency,
Yeah.
and that was all very good. But there is a little bit of a funny story. Have I got time to share this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, yeah, because like all these things, I was just interested in the fish science and the research, and they wanted me to kind of double up and do enforcement work, which is like basically catching poachers and things. And I'm not going to say I was a scaredy cat, but what I am going to say is I really hated the early morning starts. Even when I go networking, I make sure I join networking groups that like start at midday because I'm so lazy in the mornings. And this is a confession, so I'm being a bit naive with this being recorded, but I deliberately failed the small boat handling course by allowing my said boat to hit a jetty, because that
Oh.
was the prerequisite for doing this poaching work. And
Ah.
because of that, they had to put me 100% on the fish science. So that's, I was a naughty boy, and nobody knows that story apart from you, me, and the listeners. So that's that. So that's the kind of fish side of things. And I guess I progressed, and you have to pay the mortgage at the end of the day and all that stuff. So I became a research manager, and that's what's given me quite a good insight into working with businesses now, because I've got quite good at really knowing how businesses tick and doing my due diligence when I work with people. But all good things come to an end, and public sector being what it is with all the
Yeah.
change programs, I got a bit fed up with it and wanted to change. And so you probably think, oh yeah, so he went into films, fish to films, but I didn't. Again, naivety is a little bit of a streak running through this. I had and was having a very successful running career, semi-professional running career. You know,
Wow.
I just finished third in the Edinburgh Marathon. So I
Wow.
thought, why not become a marathon running coach full time?
Yeah.
And so I basically left a very comfortable, public sector job and all that kind of jazz, and became a marathon running coach. And don't get me
Ah,
wrong, I did enjoy it, and I still do it now, as I said at the start, as a bit of a side hustle.
yeah.
But what I was finding is I was saying the same old stuff to everybody about things like running technique or certain types of session you need to do. And I thought, well, this is great, Dave, but why don't you package that up a bit? And so you're not saying the same thing all the time when it's the same stuff. So you can concentrate more on the bit they really need to know, which is generally the bit between,
Yeah.
forget the 26 miles of the marathon, it's the 5 inches between your two ears that really matter. That's where the value is really added. And so I started creating videos that covered all that stuff that everybody needs to know, and put it in a membership site, which was kind of well received. And, to cut a long story short, because I know there's more questions, that's really the dawn, the embryo of Small Biz Digital Media, because the next obvious
Ah,
step was extending that kind of concept to small businesses. So here I am.
wow. Wow. It's interesting that you said about marathons and a lot of it being in your mindset. So we've got a podcast coming up with a lady called Julie Kent, who's MBE, and she's done a marathon herself. And
Mm,
she said a lot of it was about her mindset to get her
crucial.
through it. So yeah, it's incredible. It's
That's
incredible
one of
stuff.
the reasons. The one thing I haven't kind of added is I took the time, when would it be, in about 2012 to 2014, something like that era, to really nail the kind of mindset. I was already obviously a qualified UK athletics coach, but I
Yeah.
wanted to really nail that mindset stuff. So I went out into the States first and foremost and studied a field called positive psychology, with a lot of really good things like keeping gratitude diaries, all that kind of stuff. But also, more formally, I became a practitioner and then a master practitioner of something called NLP, or Neuro Linguistic Programming,
All right.
which it's good in so many different ways. It's good for the kind of mental resilience and mental kind of coaching, but funny enough, it's also very good for what I do now with the video stuff, for marketing and messaging as well, because it's a comms tool. So
Oh
really
yeah.
pleased I did all that. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. So let's talk about the tech side of things.
Mm.
So a lot of businesses and startups and that type of thing, they're very much moving into using more video and that type of thing. What do you think are the opportunities for entrepreneurs in that sort of space?
I think there's a massive, massive opportunity now with video, and I say now, it's almost kind of post video, but obviously that doesn't mean, it's the opposite. Video is incredibly important,
Yeah.
because thinking specifically about startups, I've got this system which basically operates on the three C's. I'll tell you what the second two are first, but the first one is connect and awareness. That is the challenge for startups: getting noticed
Yeah.
and making connections in this frantic world we live in. Because at the end of the day, at that stage, when you are new and you're getting established, let's be absolutely honest. People aren't looking for you. They're not looking for you because they don't even know you. So
Yeah.
the opportunity, turning it on its head from a problem, is, what people are looking for from you, particularly if you're doing techie difficult stuff like a startup tech, is helpful and thorough answers to their questions. But here's the trick: rather than do that and basically create an explainer video, which is really salesy and after about 5 seconds pivots to your product and the premium pricing. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. What we want to do is just provide helpful and thorough answers on topics that are actually relevant to that niche that you're in.
Yeah.
So you know, if it was accountancy, it would be, if it was accountant tech, you know, the question would be around, say, data security or something like that. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be about the actual software you use, you know, to be secure. And yeah, that really works because you'll hear me banging on about this all the time. I really believe in something called the buyer journey, and it is a journey. And in 2021, you're not going to, unless you're very lucky or it will just be very sporadic, you're not going to make direct sales from complete strangers unless, you know, like it's 1p or something. You know, you've got to move them through that journey and earn that
Yeah.
credibility and trust.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. And the other C's?
Yeah, I thought you'd answer. Good job I've got those memorized. Good job there's only 3 of them, because the story there, I like being honest with these things, is again, I went out in the States, getting back to the research thing, I do my due diligence, and I really looked at how digital marketers, you know, approach this buyer journey kind of concept. And you know, some of these models, they had about 5 to 10 stages, and I
Yeah.
thought, yes, that's probably great on a theoretical standpoint, but nobody's going to remember them, and it's not going to resonate with people. So I've absolutely nailed it down without losing the value into 3 C's. So the second 2 convince. So this is basically convincing people who have now become aware of what you do, that you know what you're doing and you're the real deal. So you're still not quite selling, but you're
Yeah.
providing what we call, this is a bit of jargon now, longer form content, because they're more invested in you and your brand and able to watch or listen, a bit like this podcast, you know,
Yeah.
to slightly longer sessions from you. And then finally, because unless we are a charity, we need to actually do some business, convert. And that is
Yes.
you know, where you find clever ways to basically move that prospect into a lead, or, you know, ultimately a buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. So, how many years did you say that you've run your business now? How many years?
Yeah, Small Biz Digital Media. I always find it amusing on LinkedIn when people offer you congratulations randomly. You think, well, I haven't been racing since 2010, so they can't still be congratulating me on a marathon. So what the hell are they congratulating me about? And you look at the profile, and it said that I'd been going for 3 years back in February. So just under
Well,
3.5 years. And I know it's a cliche, and I know my name's Bird, but the time has absolutely flown. I can't, yeah, I can't believe how quickly it's gone, really. Yeah, which
and
is good.
yeah, it's fantastic and congratulations. But what's been your biggest, in those 3 years, what's been your biggest learning opportunity?
Yeah, if can I have 2 for the price of 1? I'm always looking for a good deal,
Yes.
especially as we've been talking about convert. So yeah, so I would say the 2 biggest learning opportunities, firstly, is to be really, really clear about your USP, which is code for unique selling point, because I'm not one of these, you know, I'm in an incredibly competitive niche, and you and I both know, you know, other people in my niche locally and beyond, and I won't rubbish anybody in my niche. We all do amazing work,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm actually good friends with a lot of other people who do kind of video and this kind of thing. But at the end of the day, what helps, you know, that to happen and to be friends and collaborators is providing some real USP for what you do that kind of sets you apart. So, you know, as you've kindly hinted at earlier, I go for quite innovative approaches. I put marketing, very, very high in terms of words and scripts, putting it bluntly, above the visuals, really, in its importance. And I rely very heavily on a research background and the psychology of finding out what makes a business tick. So those would be examples of USP. And then the second one, very quickly, is I've also learned, and I kind of said this right at the start, if you try and please everybody all the time, you please no one none of the time. So
True.
I really am working quite hard at niche. And that doesn't mean if a restaurant came to me and said, Dave, please do a pizza video for us, we need it by next Friday, that I'd say, no, I only work with boring businesses that need to be brought to light. But, I do have a passion for working with companies and businesses that are professional services, people basically with an ology or an ism that know their stuff, that just need that work brought to life a bit.
Yeah. So USP and having that sort of niche. I mean, I interviewed Dan Barker from Dan Barker Studios when I first started this podcast in 2020, when we was in lockdown, and Dan was very focused on having a niche for his photography in relation to engineering industry. And I think that way, because of his career and his background as an engineer as well, and I think like with me, mine is very sort of niche as well. I worked in housing, so that's my niche. So it's good for entrepreneurs to have that awareness of where they're going and a focus. So niche is, I totally agree, very important. Now, I'd say one of your niches, which it makes me chuckle actually. You've got a real passion for music. How does that correlate with your business?
It's sometimes a bit of a stretch to make it correlate, but because I love it so much, I kind of stretch that elastic band as much as I can. So two things really. I have to admit, I am an absolute sucker for fantastic singer-songwriting. Kate Bush, Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, I could roll them all off, but particularly Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is, I think, the guy is the Shakespeare of our times in terms of rock music. And what is quite amusing is people will often say they don't like him, and then what I usually do is the cover test. So I will say, "What do you think of that Adele classic? Can you feel my love?" Oh, absolute masterpiece. Dylan wrote that. What do you think of that great Guns N' Roses song, Knocking on Heaven's Door? What a rocker. Dylan wrote that. So, people don't often realize his influence, but where it comes into what I do, before I go off on a kind of Dylan tangent, which I'm very capable of doing, is Dylan has got amazing genius for messaging. He hated this tag, by the way, but he was called many times the spokesman of his generation, particularly back in the 60s. So I kind of use that inspiration, particularly on my short form content, to make sure that the business's messaging is short, succinct, but very impactful. And then the kind of corollary for that, if you like, for some of the longer form content, more in that convince part of the 3 C's, is the guy does storytelling on steroids. Honestly, just check out songs like Hurricane, or just the name of these songs will make you realize what great stories they are. Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts, the girl from the Red River Shore. You just want to listen. The ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest. They're just amazing songs. The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll. So, that's rubbed off on me in a big way as well when I'm doing longer form content, to not make it formless, factual, bore fest, but actually introduce some storytelling into it. And then the third thing on Dylan, and then I better stop, is, the guy has always sang to he's given me the confidence to sing to my own crowd, which gets back to the niching thing, because let's be honest, a lot of people can't stand his voice, and various other things. He's not great in terms of being good with the media and all that kind of stuff. So and yet he's still a legend. So
Yeah.
it kind of gives you the confidence to be who you are, really. And then the second thing is more of a specific, and we can always share this or whatever. But I've done a workshop recently where I've gone wider than just Dylan and shared my whole record collection in a workshop, which was called rather cutesy title, I'm afraid, Video Scripts That Rock for Record Sales. And is basically using the music. Is there's no like death by PowerPoint on it. It's just a whole load of album covers that are from my collection, that are things like Benefit, Jethro Tull, Hard Promises, Tom Petty. It's just
Yeah.
calling what you've got to do to write great scripts for your videos.
Very clever. And I think that's what makes you memorable as well, because now when I think of Bob Dylan, I think of Dave Bird.
Well, that's the idea. There's a powerful concept. I can't remember if it's NLP or positive psychology,
Yeah.
but it's called authority by association.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that's the case, because to be likened to, somebody who's an absolute genius isn't bad going, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice association, Dave. Brilliant. Brilliant. So in relation to you now, are you still doing your running? Do you still do that?
Yeah, I've done a fantastic run today on the Malverns, actually, taking advantage of the cloud cover, because it's been extremely hot lately. And what I would say is my last competitive run was that Edinburgh Marathon in 2010, and I said to Radio Scotland at the time, I said, "This is it. That's enough. I'm not doing any more of this." But rather than give up and just become a kind of couch potato or whatever, what I've done is I've kind of reframed, to use an NLP term, my running from something very competitive and sort of almost semi-professional, really, to something I do for well-being, because well-being is absolutely huge. If you're running any kind of business and you want sustainability, your well-being's got to be right up there. And I actually hardwire 4 quality runs into every week, every
Wow.
week, and make sure, unless I'm ill or injured, and I touch wood, I don't get injured very often, that I do them. And it gives me amazing sense of well-being and physical fitness. And the way I do them is kind of relevant to your, if you've got advanced your well-being, you're obviously well into the well-being thing, because I do something called mindful running. So if I'm running uphill, which living in Malvern is almost a prerequisite,
Yeah.
I concentrate on the breath, and that is kind of really meditative to be doing that, mindfully running in that way.
Yeah.
And then when I'm in woodland or I'm off-road, just focusing on the footfall is also very kind of calming and soothing, and you come back and you feel mentally refreshed as well as physically relaxed.
Yeah, I completely get that. I completely get that. And it's important to put it in, like you said, you've got a routine of getting those walks in. So, I totally get that. I do that with my cycling. Sunday is my day when I'm out for the whole day and I'm cycling, and I do it completely mindfully as well. And it's like you press a refresh button and you just feel so much better for it. But yeah.
And it doesn't feel like, once you've got it hardwired, the beauty of it is it doesn't feel like a routine anymore, because
True.
It's a given. You don't think to yourself, "Oh, I'm really fed up with this routine of having to eat breakfast," because it is a routine, isn't it? It's the same thing.
Well, that's where mindfulness comes in, and that's about sort of finding joy in the things that you do, whatever they are. But let's talk a bit more about your videos, because what sorts of initiatives have you been involved in? Because you've also mentioned that you do podcast production, and what other things do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and it's picking up on the buyer journey and the three C's, because I don't think I'm going to make a quite a kind of big statement now, if you like. I don't believe businesses are going to be that well future proofed going forward, without, particularly with everything we've experienced with the pandemic, because that kind of digital model is here to stay now.
Yeah.
And I think people need a very good mix of digital media. And as you've rightly said, although video, I would say is 80% of what I do, podcasts have their place as well, and audio books, because
Yeah.
the end of the day, people are doing other things like driving and running. We've talked a lot about running there, or
Yeah.
walking if you're not into running. And the podcast and audiobook market, I don't think is going away. It does dip and dive a bit. What amuses me is podcasts seem to be the new black dress for, or whatever. But
Yeah.
I did a marathon one quite a while back, and I think I must have hit, it was like a housing crash. I must have hit it just when they were going on a decline, and they've now picked up again, but which is good, because I'm planning to do my own probably in the autumn, when I get
Ooh.
the planning done for it. But so I do believe that audio is very important, as well as video, and obviously things like having fast loading web pages, to kind of host these things as well. But one thing I was going to kind of mention is, I think the number of times people have come to me and they said, Dave, I need a video for my business. And you'd think my eyes would pop up in delight. And I have to say, they do roll a bit, because there is this feeling, or there was, maybe it's changing a bit now, that, this feeling, if you've got one video, suddenly you've ticked the video box and everything is fine in the garden. And I think now we're at a level where you probably need more than one video on your about page.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So let's get the balance, because I know this is like a startup emphasis here. If you're saying, well, Dave Bird said that, so we've got to outsource a shed load of video production, I'm not naive. That's going to stretch any budget, particularly a startup budget.
Yeah.
So the kind of angle I've started taking, which marries really well with the coaching I do, is yes, there will be types of video, like about videos and things. You can see the equipment behind me that need specialist equipment, so you come over in a credible, professional way.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot where you can do it on your smartphone, or you can use very basic kind of video creation software. But even then, what I think is helpful, and this is something I can offer for free in a session to start out with, is some kind of strategy, some kind of video marketing strategy,
Yeah.
based on the three C's: connect, convince, convert, where you get some sense of what you need and what you don't need. Because, you could produce 50 videos, or you could produce 4, but don't produce one, because it won't be enough, and it's just finding out what's best for your business.
Yeah, I totally get that. I had some fantastic whiteboard animation videos done by Sketchat at the beginning, and I worked with Stevenson Creative as well, and they did some videos about what my services are, and it just helps start educating people as to where your expertise is. So I do believe it is really important to speak to somebody like yourself, Dave.
But to actually, and I know I keep joking about these boring businesses, but to actually have them brought to life, even by seeing real human beings talking about these so-called boring things, already takes you up a notch from people who just think they've ticked the box because they've got a website that kind of, has all their services listed on it. You've got to now be more relatable. You've got to be more engaging. You've got to show more empathy. you know, and those things are not achievable. I'm sorry to break this to folk, but they're not achievable just by black text on a white background.
Totally, totally agree. Especially like, you know, YouTube, TikTok, that it's just massive. It's just massive. So we've been talking, and I just want to get this one question in because we've been talking longer than I anticipated. But I'm interested to know who inspires you, Dave.
Yeah, I've been around, you know, the networking circuit for quite a while now, and again, I'm going to go for two because they'll be quite quick. So two Peters basically.
Okay.
So Peter Bayliss is somebody who does this course called Marketing for Humans. It's like a kind of a workshop, and you know, you can already see it resonates with some of the stuff I've been saying. And yeah, he positions a lot of these concepts about the buyer journey in a really clear and concise way. And I thoroughly recommend, you know, anybody going on that, particularly as a startup, because it
Yeah.
gives you a really good foundation on how to get started, you know, along some of the themes we've been talking about. And then the second Peter is Peter Roper, who runs the family business practice that I'm a member of. And I'm just very impressed with him, given the digital themes that we've been talking about, because when I first met him, he was 100% networking event. You turn up at, you know, some very lovely Stanbrook Abbey, I think I went to,
Yeah.
you know, very lovely places and have, you know, nice nosh and great kind of teachings and networking. And he's been able to completely pivot. I hate the word, but it is the right word here. Completely
Yeah.
pivot to a kind of Zoom call based model and make it work, which shows. And don't get, I'm not trying to say that, you know, it hasn't been a struggle for events. Of course it has, and I totally sympathize. But he has shown that it can be done to, you know, operate a digital delivery model
Mm.
even when your business, and it kind of speaks to a theme that I often kind of find amusing when people think you know, video's not for us or podcasts are not for us or whatever. You know, it just
Yeah.
shows that, you know, most, if not all, businesses can benefit from these forms of media.
Yeah. So Peter Bayliss, and what's his business called?
The kind of thing that he runs is Marketing for Humans. I
Okay.
can
And then
share the
we've
link.
got Peter Roper from.
The family business practice.
Yeah, okay. Now, what I will say at this point, Dave, is I worked in the corporate world. And when I moved into starting up my own business, this whole network opens up of these different things that you go to and you speak to other businesses. Now, me as a startup, I didn't know these existed. So, for people that are listening in that are looking to start their business, there's a whole lot of different networking groups. And the family business practice is one, and there'll be lots of others. But it's worth looking up Peter Roper's family business practice because it's a great networking group to attend. But it's been fantastic to speak to you, Dave, today. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think the most obvious way is to go on to smallbizdigitalmedia.com. So that's small biz, biz, and then digital media, no kind of dashes, just the dot and the com.
Okay.
Or you know, nice traditional thing, just email me at dave@smallbizdigitalmedia.com and we can take it from there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dave. It's been an education. We've gone from fishing to Bob Dylan to video production, podcasting. Brilliant.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been an absolute blast.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.